course. And today we're going to be learning React, or we're going to be starting to learn React. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the beginning basics, and this is going to be a multi-video series, multiple parts. This is part one, and right now I'm just going to give you a short introduction to React, and we're going to get into the very basics of React. So let's get into it. Now, what is React? React is a JavaScript library to make user interfaces. React allows us to make our code reusable through something called components. Components are basically pieces of code that we declare inside of React. Now, I could sit here for like 10 minutes explaining to you what React is, how it works, and give you some examples, but instead I think it's best if we just dive straight into the code. So let's get into it. So what you're going to need for this video is you're going to need a code editor. I'm using VS Code. And you're also going to need to have Node.js installed. Node.js is a runtime for JavaScript, but we're mostly going to be using it, like Node.js comes with npm, and you're going to need both those because we're going to be using npm to get React onto our machine so we can start. So right here in the React docs, you can see for getting started, there's multiple ways you can start. You can use their playground online, but what we're going to do is use something called create React app. So create React app is amazing for when you just want to quickly start. You can use toolchain, but I'm just going to use this. So to start with the React app, all you have to do is open up a terminal, and you want to type in npx create React. No, it's create dash React dash app, and then the name of your app. So let's say I want my app to be called, I don't know, we'll call it test app. Test dash app. Alright, just give it a second. So now it's gonna take a couple of minutes, depends for everyone. But I'll be right back once this is done. And yeah. Oh, what does it say? Oh yes, so you can't have capital letters, sorry, that's my mistake. Second. Dash React dash app. Let's call it test dash app. Okay. Yeah, this should run now, and I'll be back when it's done. So I'll see you guys then. And the installation is done now. So you'll see right here it says test app. We can open this up, and the rest of the folders are fine, but we're only going to focus on one folder really, which is srk. Your index.html file is in the public folder, but we don't need that. And now we're going to remove some stuff we don't need. So basically, we don't need a CSS file right now, so we can get rid of that. We can get rid of our app.test.js because we also don't need that. Oh, I got rid of the wrong file. 1 second, guys. Let me just fix that really quickly. Oh, shoot. Okay, 1 second. Actually, we'll just get rid of this. We'll get rid of our index.css file. We don't need this logo either, or the service worker, or the setup test. So we have our index.js file here. We guys get rid of some stuff in here as well. Actually, we'll just get rid of all of this actually. There we go. Now, this is how our React app starts. First thing we're going to do is we create an index.js file, and we have to import our library. So because we use create React app, it already has React and React DOM, the two dependencies we use in the file structure. So all we do right here is import. Oh, by the way, import statements are ES6. I haven't talked about those in other videos, but if you do need a refresher on those, just find a W3 schools link, and you can definitely get some information about those. Anyways, import, and then we react with that uppercase R from React. So you need this line of JavaScript code in every single React file, including components, web pages, everything. You need that line. Then we're gonna import react DOM from react-dom. Also, in your React code, I think you saw this if you watched my JavaScript series, you can add these semicolons. A lot of people do. I personally don't like getting that in my code. I feel like it clutters it and I don't like the way it looks, so I just don't. You can do either or. And so you have to import these two things. The index.js file needs to import React DOM. I'm going to show you why. Next thing we do is we have to basically render everything in our way to create a React DOM. So we type React DOM dot render, and here we're gonna have two arguments. The first one is gonna be basically what we're rendering, and then the other one is gonna be where we're rendering it. So for the where we're rendering it, we have to do a document.getElementById, and this template of React code comes with an index file, index.html file that has a div with an ID of root. This is the default way of doing it. So we're just going to target that by doing document dot get element by ID root. That's it. And then the first argument is supposed to be it's supposed to be a component, a JavaScript component, but usually what we do, or I mean, a React component. But just to show you guys how this works, I'm just going to do a standard H1 here, and I'll have hello world, close the H1. So just to tell you guys something, right now, the code here, this is not HTML code. This H1 is JSX. JSX is kind of like a mini language inside of React that React uses as a substitute to HTML, but it renders to the HTML. So let's get into this, and actually I want to run this so I can show you guys what happened. So we have to cd into the app. So if you named it what I named it, all you have to do is cd. Actually, it's going to tell you exactly what the name is, so you can just copy that right there. Cd test dash app for me. And now I'm using yarn instead of npm. You can use either or. It's going to tell you which command to use depending on if you're using yarn or npm. So I'll just do yarn start. And now it should run in the browser. Just give it a second. It'll just open up its own new window in a development server. Here we go. Just give it a second to load. Also, guys, now that we're talking about JSX, usually you saw me delete a file known as app.js. We'll get into that in a second. Oh, here we go. We have our hello world. I'll just prove to you guys that's actually this code. Just make a hello world, and you can see it'll re-render hello world. So usually instead of having an H1 a JSX there, we would have another file in the SRK folder, and that would be known as app.js. Now this is basically a root file which holds all of our, basically has a connection to all of our components and renders them. So in this file we have to import React. Same standard statement has to be in all files, even components. So we'll just import this really quickly. And now we've imported the file. There's two types of, well, mostly for app.js, there's two types of ways you can declare these components and these roots. They can either be class-based components or functional components. Now, class-based components, I would say, are kind of outdated, and functional components are kind of the future, so I would definitely recommend functional components. So let's get into it. In fact, I'm not even going to touch on class-based components throughout this entire course because I think functional components are a lot better and a lot easier to work with. So let's get into it. You can use arrow syntax for functions here, but I'm just going to use the basic syntax. So this is our basic boilerplate code for the app root basically, and we have to export this. Export default app or app, and if you remember, we have to have a return statement in here. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put some JSX in here, just a standard H1, hello world. And we're going to go back to our index.js. And now, how are we supposed to render the code in here? Here. Simple. We just have to import our app. So import app from. So when you import a JS file into another JS file, you just have to put in the directory. So it's in the same folder, so /app. And we don't have to write .js because the standard ending is .js. If you're importing a CSS file, then you need to write .css. We have our app imported, and right here we can write app. So you might be wondering why I'm writing it in basically like a HTML tag syntax. So this is how components are written. This is technically a component. And so now this is being rendered. So if I come here, I reload the page, hello world. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, I could probably have multiple things here in this area, right? I could probably have an H1, right? Well, technically, no, you can't. And it's very simple why. Well, you can, instead of having it here, you could put it inside of the app area, the app component. So we go back into app, and let's add another H1. Call this by world. By world. Now, it's going to fail to compile. Why? Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in a enclosing tag. What this means is when you have a functional component, the return has to have it can only be one element. So all these elements have to be wrapped in one single element for it to work. You can have multiple divs inside of that element, but they all have to be wrapped in a div. So we have our div right here. Just fix that up. Okay, here we go. Now when we try this, boom, works. Now I'm going to be showing you guys how to other JSX elements, other JSX tricks. Sorry guys, I'm really tired. Okay, so one would be how you could basically render JavaScript code. So let's say I wanted to create a variable. All JSX code, by the way, has to come after the return because it's the stuff that's being returned, right? So let's say I want to create a variable, const h, and I'll set that equal to I don't know, 35. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we could actually render that in the DOM in our page. To render any JavaScript like variables and stuff, you have to have a set of curly braces, and then you just type the name of the variable. Now we come here, 35. Now let's say you want to have an H1. We can make an H1 tag around it, and H1, there we go. Now it's going to be an H1, 35. There we go. So this is really cool. This is really useful as well. You can use several methods like .map, array methods, .map, there's so many, and you can use them in React. And they work out amazing. So yeah, let's get into something a little bit more advanced. Let's get into creating separate components. So let's say this was a basic web page. Okay, I have a header, a footer, and a header, I mean content, and a footer. So I would have like an H1 that says header, and maybe I have a p tag that says main content. Then let's say I have another h1 that says footer. I'll come here. We can see header, main content, footer. Perfect. But let's say I wanted to have different things inside of each of these, and I want them to be in separate components to separate my code more. So I'll create actually, first thing we'll do is we'll create a new folder called components, and we'll create it in src, sorry, components. There's a new folder, and in here, let's have a header.js component, a main, we'll just call it main dash content.js component, and let's have a footer component, footer.js. Perfect. So we have our three components here, and actually I named this one kind of incorrect. .j. There we go. So we have three components here, and now what we're gonna do is first we're gonna need to add our content in them. So let's start with the header. First thing we need to import React. Very basic. React from React. And then what we need to do is create our components. So function, this is the header component, so we'll call it header. And now we have our return in here. So what our return is an h1 that says header. Simple enough. Let's just export this really quickly. Export default header. Perfect. Now we can import this. What I like to do is I like to keep my like React DOM and React import separate, and my file import separate. So we'll import header from. Now I'm gonna let you guys try to fill in this line area yourselves. What do you think is gonna come here? Because it's in a separate folder called components. So you guys can pause really quickly and give that a try. Go ahead. Okay, now let's do it together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have, of course, it's a new folder. So we would have // components / header. That's what we do that. And now that we have that, now that that's imported, let's add it. So let's get rid of this header right here, and it would simply be header. So we just do that, and there we go. Now let's take a quick pause, and I'm gonna let you guys try to do the other two by yourselves, and then we'll do them together. Actually, let me just show you guys that it worked first. There we go, we still have it there. So yeah, now I'm going to give you guys a try to go ahead and do it yourself, and then we'll try it together. Go ahead. Okay guys, now we're back, and now we're going to go through it together. So first what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this import statement, because we're going to have to do it 3 times, of course, for each component. Change this with the main yeah, we'll just do main dash content. So it doesn't like how we named it main dash content, so what we'll do is we'll change the name to main content like that. And now we'll just change all of this. There we go. Now we'll do footer right here. Footer. And now we'll do footer again. There we go. We have our 3 import statements. And now let's switch this out with each. So we have main content, Now you don't have to have space here. I just have it because sometimes you need to add other stuff in between, but you don't need to have it. Okay, so we have all three components there. And now we have the boilerplate code for what we need in the header component. We'll just copy that over to main content. And let's start with main content. So we'll change the function name to main content. And then we'll change this to main content. But of course, it's going to be a p tag. So let's do that. Main content. Wow, I just can't spell today. And then we have main content here one more time. Perfect. Now we just need to do that for the footer component. Make this footer, and then footer. Perfect. Now I'm just going to show you guys how this code is working from the ground up. So we have our index.html file, which has a div with the ID of root. This ID of root is being grabbed by the index.js file. It's using React and creating a React DOM, and that React DOM is being rendered with this app component. This app component has a component inside of it, has multiple components inside of it that are being imported, header.js, content.js, and footer.js. They're all being exported and then imported into app.js. All three of them are contained inside of a div. So actually, if you would get rid of this div, the code would be wrong, it wouldn't work. And they're all being put inside of a div and being rendered together. So let's just quickly check this out. And yeah, there we go, guys, working perfectly. Let's just change something really quickly. Let's just change it to head. And there we go. It's working perfectly. So that was our basic introduction to React and really just components in general in React. React is so useful. It's honestly amazing. And I hope you guys love this course. And I hope it helps you learn React. And yeah, so if you guys like the video today, definitely subscribe, like the video, leave a comment down below on other courses you want to see. I'll definitely do anything you guys want. Tell me if you want it to be beginner, advanced, intermediate, whatever. Let me know. And yeah. So I'll see you guys in the next part. Peace.